We all know about HIPAA, right? And the idea that we have to protect our patients' privacy. And we do everything we can in the office to protect our patients' privacy, right? We train our staff on that. But there's a lot more to protecting our patients' privacy than not talking about them out in the reception area, having a password on our computers and in our software. There's a lot more to it. So I have Steve here from DDS Rescue, and Steve and I were talking recently about protecting our patients' privacy when it comes to our networks, our servers, our computers. And we were talking about how I see a lot of offices, dental offices, where their server is really the front desk computer that the receptionist works on. And he told me a story about why that's not good and why the server needs to be locked away. So I wanted to share this with you so that in case you're not aware and haven't thought of why these things are important, Steve can tell us hundreds of stories. So tell me why I don't want to have my receptionist server right there at the front desk, and what does it matter?
Well, regrettably, there's been a lot of breaches done just due to theft of a device.
Okay.
In fact, if you look at hhs.gov and the reasons why there's been major data breaches in healthcare, a vast majority of them, well, the single largest by a lot is theft of a device.
Okay.
And regrettably, they're not looking for the health information.
Well, and that's what I was thinking. Like, we work on teeth. It's not like we know if somebody's got, some sort of a disease or cancer. What do they want out of our server?
It seems that we've become, allow me to use the phrase, the low-hanging fruit,
okay,
to service the identity thefts. In fact, this came to light with us, with a customer at the first Saturday of 2015.
Uh-huh.
Simple dental office, single practitioners, been in practice for quite some time. Had, 3, 4, 5,000 patients a record on her server. And that Saturday, she was broken into,
mm-hmm.
and the only thing they touched, the only thing they went for was the server.
Okay.
They did a snatch and grab, according to the police. They literally threw a brick through a window, got in, they knew they had X number of seconds, the police tell us less than 2 minutes.
Okay.
So they get in and out in 90 seconds, according to what we've learned. And they take the server, which weighs about 5 pounds,
right,
and is not physically secured.
Okay.
It's not electronically secured.
Right.
And off they go. Because what they're looking for is clean records of date of birth and social security numbers. Now, if we watch...
we have everything on our patients. Yeah.
If we watch 60 Minutes had put this same segment out twice, and one of the largest reasons for identity theft is the tax scam, the false tax returns. If you can get somebody's date of birth and social security number, these criminals put in a false tax return. And it's now gone to what the IRS is saying. It's going to be something in the neighborhood of a $16 billion problem for them this year.
Okay.
Now, in those interviews, they interviewed the reformed criminals who are now working with the IRS, and they said both times that the easiest place to get them were dental offices, secondly, medical offices.
Wow. Because
you look at it and you've got 5,000 patients a record.
Mm-hmm.
On the black market, I don't know if we should really say this,
but it's worth a lot.
It's worth a tremendous amount.
Okay.
So you're looking at a fact that a server could be sold with the information on the back of it because it's not protected.
Okay.
For many, many tens of thousands of dollars.
Okay.
That's to feed this. Now, it's not, first off, that's bad enough.
Right.
But when that happens in a dental office or a medical office...
Well, let me ask you a question. We have a password on our server.
Doesn't matter. It goes right through the back door. That's not even going to slow anybody down. If it's encrypted, and encrypted at the level that the government says can't be broken, which, to be boring, is called AES 128-bit or AES 256. Very boring. But if someone tells you that their software is encrypted, you need to get it in writing at to what level.
Okay.
There was just a recent situation with a major company of practice management software that got hit with a $250,000 fine and 10 years or more of some kind of review that they're going to have. They really got taken to school.
Okay.
Because they were saying our software is encrypted, but it was encrypted at such a low level, the government says any hacker can get through it.
Okay.
So you are responsible for knowing what level the government says is protected and what level your stuff is.
So if you've got a software that's not protected or at the right encryption level and somebody takes it, now what happens? I mean, we're out of server. We just get our backup and put a new server and we're running.
That would be wonderful if we didn't have to deal with and that's not said correctly. Allow me to say it right.
Positive. Turn it
In
positive.
today's environment of protecting the data and protecting our patients, health information and personal information,
Right.
under the rules that we live in, that constitutes a major data breach.
Okay.
A HIPAA major data breach. And the HIPAA major data breach reporting procedure is daunting. If you're not familiar with it, it boils down to the following.
Okay.
Anytime you have a breach of a single file or multiples, you must report it to the patient
Okay.
and report it to the government.
Okay. And we're
So-
talking about 5,000 patients
But
now.
if you've got one, so
Okay.
say an email gets
Yes.
lost,
Right.
no big deal.
Okay.
However, anytime it's 500 records or greater, it becomes a major breach.
Okay.
And the protocol is as follows. You have to inform hhs.gov. You then have to do a letter to every single one of your patients of record. And if they have passed away, it must go to their next of kin.
Okay.
And then you must say that there is a possibility or a probability that you have had your information.
So kind of like that
Compromise.
Target letter we all got when they had the
Well,
credit card issue.
And remember what else happened with Target. Because also you have to go to every single outlet, media outlet in your region, not just your town, in your region, and inform them. That's TV, newspaper, and radio, in some form of like press release that says if you have been in Dr. Hatch's office, you should get a hold of them because they have had a breach and you may have had personal information breach.
I think that's going to kill my online presence. I don't think my,
It's going to put a dent in it.
yeah.
For example, following through on some of our customers that have had this happen, what we have learned and what we have tried to come up with ways to help prevent this is that you're going to have a significant expense.
Mhm.
And we're not talking about HIPAA fines, because in the case of this one that I mentioned in 2015, they didn't do anything wrong. They didn't break any HIPAA rules. They got robbed.
Right.
However, how you handle it will determine whether you get penalized or not.
Okay.
So this office did bring in immediately a HIPAA consultant,
Mhm.
which starts clicking at about $1,000 a day. Then, because of some of the pushback, which is very, very common from the patients, they brought in a HIPAA attorney. Now, as been reported in every single research that we can get our hands on, the low end of the expense for the office to correct this problem without fines is $100,000.
Wow.
Plus, try to think of your normal attrition that you're going to have per year.
Yeah.
Now, I'm told it's between 15 and 17% of your practice.
Right.
You have to recruit new patients to keep your active
Right.
patients level.
Nobody's going to
The
want to come to
ability
the
to
office.
recruit.
Yeah.
The consultants are telling us that the average loss of top-line patients is around 20%.
Yeah. I believe it.
So you're taking a hit on the bottom line, which happens fast.
Right.
4 to 6 months, that money's gone.
Right.
And you're going to start losing 20% of your top line. It is a daunting situation you do not want to have.
Okay.
Now, the beauty of it is it can be prevented.
Right. And that's what I was going to say. So we need to make sure that our server is encrypted and have it documented. If the data is encrypted.
Yes, and that can be very confusing. The most secure way to do it is what's called end-to-end encryption.
Okay.
Now, that means your inbound and outbound emails that have anything to do with patient records on them or patient information is encrypted.
Right.
And there's a number of different services.
Okay. So like Gmail.
Well, Gmail does have an encryption
Okay,
situation.
good.
That
We
can
just
be
had to go to
one.
it. Okay.
There's one called Send Inc.
Yes.
That gets used by a lot of doctors. They profess to have 70% of their customers are dentists.
Okay.
Seems like a good
Yeah.
group.
And I know I was just at ADOM, there was a few different companies that had that. But you have
Exactly.
to make sure that your communication, okay?
Then your server,
Okay.
or any device that is going to hold patient information.
Okay.
That should be encrypted, but encrypted at the device level, not the software level. That means once that thing's unplugged, the
Okay.
door to all of data
Okay.
is slammed shut.
Okay.
And it needs to be done at the right level.
And let me ask you a question, because I've always wondered about this. What about at our workstations, the stuff that's kept on the workstations versus the server? So somebody grabs in my workstation, does that need to be encrypted too? Because there's
Well,
stuff on, they're not supposed to be,
the
but.
best thing is the best protocol is
Always on
either
the server.
encrypt all of them, but just keep it on the server.
Okay.
Keep it on the server. First off, that keeps your workstations free. You don't need as large a workstation
Right.
or as elaborate a workstation.
Okay.
And secondly, it decreases where they can get the information.
Okay. Now where should the server be?
Well, that's one of the interesting things. You mentioned in the front office. When we started using computers in dentistry, It was for the front office.
Mm-hmm.
And it just kind of by habit,
right.
it grew out of there because that's where it is.
Right.
The problem is from a physical standpoint, we just talked about technical.
Mm-hmm.
Technical, if you look at the 3 areas you should look at, which is physical, technical, administrative, to improve the security of your data. Technically, if you've encrypted your data, inbound, outbound, your backups are encrypted, what goes to the cloud is encrypted, you've made it such that should you have a break-in and should you have a theft, it's like you said, it's an insurance claim, it's not a major data breach.
Right.
From a physical standpoint, you want to make sure that you deter it from being easy to rob.
Okay.
The police, again, I'm going back to the fact they told us it's a snatch and grab. You know, you don't need a hacker, you need a brick. And that's it.
Yeah.
They get 90 seconds in and out. You've got 3 cords that you unplug in the back of it. It's 5 pounds and out the door you go.
Okay.
And you've got a pretty good payday.
Right.
In the front office is where we find most of them.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't matter where they are. They should be physically behind a lock.
Okay.
And that lock should be a good lock.
Mm-hmm.
But what we also are saying is take the server itself and physically lock it down.
Okay.
There's something called a server cage or a server locker, and they're $200 or $300.
Okay.
You anchor them to something very strong. And by the way, do not put it on the floor. Get it at least 6 inches up in case a pipe bursts.
Okay.
If you make it harder physically for them to take it, they're probably going to go to another office.
They're going to run out of time. They want to get out of there.
Well, they've already cased this place. Like the example that we talked about in the very first one, they knew exactly where this was, and it was in the basement.
Okay.
They went straight to it and back out. So
out.
somehow they had cased it.
Right.
So they knew what to do. So if that thing is going to take them more than 90 seconds
They're
to
not
get through a
gonna-
locked door
right.
and open it up, they're going to move on to somebody else.
Right.
Then administratively, there's a few other things you need to do. Teach your people what to do and what not to do. Don't let everybody have access to all the information.
Right.
If they don't need it in their job, look at different levels of access that you can do with your software.
Okay.
Then also don't let people easily get access through the internet. We see offices providing...
Yeah, this is very interesting. Listen,
and
because
this
I'm
is-
sure there's a ton of offices doing this.
This is a scary thing that an IT person can show a doctor very quickly. We have offices providing internet access for their guests.
Right, we do that.
It's the same internet as the office uses.
We don't do that.
Good. It should be a totally separate IP address so that you don't inadvertently give access technically
Right,
for somebody who's going to do something bad
right,
to get into your network and be able to get into this information.
right.
Because it is very, very easy to do, even with passwords, even with whatever, unless the software is encrypted while open. And there's very, very few softwares that can do that.
Okay.
And if someone says their software is encrypted, again, get it in writing, put it into your risk assessment book for HIPAA, because there's a good chance it's not going to meet the requirements.
Okay. So for all of us who are trying to get our doctors to put some love towards their network and their server and all that, what do you recommend we do? So we get a good IT company, or make sure our IT company is following the rules. Is there an assessment or something we can do?
Exactly.
Okay.
In fact, HIPAA came out with some guidelines just a couple of weeks ago.
Okay.
And they talk about getting a risk evaluation.
Okay.
We call it an assessment.
Okay.
It happens that after we started seeing these problems pretty much 2 years ago, we started doing something called a data security assessment. Now that takes us 5 hours to do, but it's usually a couple of $100, but the distributors, our 2 distributors, Patterson and Benco, are sponsoring it for no charge.
Okay.
Now I know this sounds like an advertisement, but it is something that HIPAA is recommending.
Right.
Get the assessment done. It will show you vulnerabilities and show you how to improve the security against them. Many of the things we couldn't sell them if we wanted to.
Right.
But they need to
They
take
need
it
to
to their IT person, and at that time, you can sit down and intelligently say,
This is
okay,
what we need.
I understand we have a firewall we bought 2 years ago,
Right.
but 2 years ago we didn't have the same threats.
Right.
Now we need to go to a business class firewall.
Okay.
Here's some suggestions. Do you have one of these? And go to your IT person and say, we need to up our game.
Okay.
We need to look at a better way to secure the data, both physically and technically.
Right.
We need a recovery plan.
Right.
If you're going to get robbed or you're going to
You
get
need to know how you're
breached,
going to back. Yeah.
how are you going to get back in business quickly
Right.
without downtime?
Right.
Those things need to get done, and we provide that.
So, and one of the things you've talked about is being proactive. We just want to have a plan in place. And so part of the reason that I had Steve sit here with me, I mean, we're lucky enough to use DDS Rescue in our office, which is part of how he and I got started talking. But as an office manager, you know, we're battling everything else every day. And now we're battling our doctor to make sure that we've got all of this and our IT people. So make sure that you're, you know, keeping an eye on this and not, you know, worrying about or forgetting about it until you get that phone call that says your office got robbed. I have information at the bottom of the video just to give you more resources of where you can get help in your office. And I highly suggest DDS Rescue, but, you know, at least get out there and find what's going to work for your office and don't wait until you get that dreaded phone call. So thank you, Steve.
Thank you.
That was very computer interesting.
As interesting as we can make it.
Exactly.